Hello and welcome to the collapse experiment. So, why you shouldn't rent to libertarians. I know this is probably going to piss a lot of people off, but I have my reasons for saying this. And yes, I understand you can't discriminate due to somebody's political beliefs. Come on, we all know that's bullshit. Democrats have been doing it for the last 6-8 years. Come on. It's only cool when they do it. Now, I will be the first to admit, yes, I have some libertarian ideas. However, I'm not one of those psychos who join the party. For one, I've never met an actual registered libertarian who didn't deserve to be punched in the face after talking to them for the first 5 minutes. Libertarians are like the conservative version of vegans. You want to know how somebody's a libertarian? They'll tell you. So, why should you not rent to them? From my own personal experience, for one, if you're a libertarian and you're renting, do everybody a favor, your landlord, the people in your life, and just buy a piece of property. That way the only person you can bitch to about your rights being violated, and they use the term rights loosely, is the people that you are paying property tax to, okay? I rented to a guy, and he was one of my best friends, so already a bad situation. It's one of those, he was being evicted, needed a place to stay. I was really primarily staying at my girlfriend / future wife's house most of the time. So it became very convenient for him to just rent my house while I wasn't there. And that's how it started, just helping a friend out. Now we did the whole lease thing just to keep everything legal and make sure that nobody got screwed, so contracts were involved. And then, over time, things happened. And they were not good things. One of the first was he started asking about doing things to the house. And it's like, these were not little things. These were he was wanting to, I had this one room in the house that for some reason the people who owned it before me had put stucco on the walls. Yes, weird. I understand that. But that's probably going to be more of a cost than it's worth to undo that. Just put up bookshelves. Put some posters up, okay? So anyways, he decided that he was going to try doing that anyways and completely fucked up the walls in that house. In that room in particular. Next thing that happened was his girlfriend, she moved in with him and yet was never added to the lease. That's always kind of a bad deal. Because, if something happens, I can't evict her because she technically doesn't live there. Meanwhile, she can claim squatter's rights. And therefore, we're both doubly screwed and, he's stuck living with a psycho if that's what ends up happening. Other things that happened. Occasionally I would send him a notice, and a couple days later I would come by to the house to make sure everything's up to code, because the landlord next door was a huge prick, and basically he was always trying to force me out so that he could buy the house and have another rental property. So if my lawn wasn't mowed by a certain time, he would notify the city, and the city would harass me, and I would get fines, and these assholes would come by the house once a week to make sure my lawn was mowed, and they'd trespass on my property. It was a whole ordeal. So not being there and not trusting that he would get it done, I would come by to make sure the lawn is mowed, there's no trash outside that people can see, yada yada yada. One day I go into the backyard, and yes, the backyard was fenced in, but again, the landlord next door is a prick. So he would look into the backyard to make sure nothing was going on back there that he didn't like, regardless of whether it could be seen from the road or not. Oh, weird. There's a dead robin here. That doesn't make any sense. Something got it. I'm just surprised that there's even a robin around here this time of year. So, anyways, I go into the backyard, and there is a stack of tires. And I knew that he had just gotten new tires, but most people have the sense to just have them be disposed of. Yes, it's a cost, but what the hell do you do with old tires? Well, apparently if you are a libertarian, you stack them in your backyard so that they collect rainwater, and you have issues with mosquitoes and whatnot, and it's a freaking violation of the housing ordinance in the city. Can't just store your tires. So I bring it up, and he was like, well, the city can't tell me what I can do on my property. And I was like, this is a total libertarian thing. And I responded with, well, first of all, it's not your property. I pay rent. You're double enforcing like my answer here. Like, it's not your property, and you don't get the fine for it. I do. So really, you're just being a dick to me. And I can see the gears turning in his head. I'm just going to refer to him as Bob. I can see the gears turning in Bob's head, where he's just like, yeah, I guess that's true. And it's like, yeah, libertarians never think about the consequences to other people. They're only thinking about like how they feel like they're being screwed in the situation. Not how they're screwing somebody else, even if it's unintended. So he took care of the tires by, he just threw them in the shed. Like, he just absolutely refused to pay anybody to get rid of these damn things. Meanwhile, I had to deal with it later. So, then, there's the issue with the dog. This still like burns my ass till today. So Bob joins the National Guard, the Army, which is a whole nother story. He got screwed on that one too, because he was supposed to get a $40,000 bonus to help pay off his student loan debt. Translation: once you sign up, there is no $40,000. There's always some excuse, some missing paperwork, you didn't do something on time, your PT exam wasn't up to par, whatever it is. I've heard these stories not just from him, but several other people before. Basically, the Army screws you out of your bonus because once you sign up, you're just their property and their bitch anyways. But his girlfriend, because he would go off to camp for like 2 weeks at a time and didn't like staying at the house by herself, she wanted to get a dog. Now, on the rental agreement, no dogs. No dogs allowed. There wasn't even a stipulation of like, you can have a dog, but your rent's going to go up or anything like that. It was just no dogs. So he keeps asking me, yeah, so-and-so, his girlfriend, wants to get a dog. And I'm like, dude, it's like in your lease. Yeah, but I'm asking you to see, like, if we can. And I'm like, it's in your lease. Like, you read the fucking lease. Like, when you signed that thing, there was no intention of ever having a dog. And it got to the point where he asked again, and this had been going on for several weeks, maybe well over a month. And I'm asking, like, well, what are you looking at getting? And he's like, nothing big, blah, blah, blah. Fucking liar. So, in the end, I cave. And I'm like, fine, if she feels safe, whatever, like, yeah, get a dog. Keep in mind, the lease was never, like, changed, or, like, even when it was renewed annually, like, there's nothing in there changed about having a dog. So, even with me verbally saying it, the paperwork states clearly you can't have a dog. But I'm not that kind of prick. It's like, I'm the one that finally agreed to it after being pestered about it for such a long period of time, and I should have just stuck to my guns. So what do they get? They don't get some cute little dog that can sit with her on the couch while he's not there, which, again, not my fucking problem. No. They get a fucking pit bull. And from the moment they got that thing, I fucking hated that dog. They didn't train it. They didn't potty train it. House train it. This thing would lunge at everybody and everything. So even on the days where I would stop by to check on the property, it's like, all I have to do legally is give them a 2-day notice saying, hey, I'm stopping by to make sure everything's up to code. But fuck no, couldn't check shit. And then to top it off, they're tying it to the front porch of the house. It ripped the fucking handrail off of the stairs. I forgot about that until now. So it's damaging property. It's breaking property. Then they wrapped not the chain, it was like one of those wires with the plastic coating over it. They wrapped that around one of the fucking posts of the porch to a fucking pit bull, and it starts tearing apart the stucco on the front of the house. I was getting fucking livid. And keep in mind, like, he was well beyond, like, not getting his deposit back when he moved out. It was horrible. So what ends up happening is 2020 happens. He'd already been there like 2 or 3 years. All this shit accumulated over time to where it was just like, this is insane. Like, this is the guy who, he was best man at my wedding. And it's like, every time I'm pointing out, like, dude, you're gonna fuck me on this. They can't tell me what to do. And it's like, so 2020, me and my wife are moving out of the city. And first thing on my agenda was, I need to get rid of this fucking house. Like, we're moving 3 hours away. I can't keep an eye on it. All I'm going to do is get fucking fines in the mail. My taxes are going to go up. And so I'm like, dude, I got to sell this. And I said, you've already been living there X amount of time. Do you want to just buy the house? His first response is, fuck no. Okay, so you're willing to rent it. You're willing to argue you should be able to do whatever the fuck you want with it, but you're not willing to invest in it. Cool. So I tell him, well, you can't be staying there if I'm putting it on the market, which kind of sucked. It was a really bad situation for everybody around. I didn't want to kick the guy out, But after some of the shit he had already pulled, he kind of deserved to be kicked out. Let's just be honest. It's like every horrible decision you try to make because of your liberty and your rights only ends up fucking me in the end. And this is why, to this day, I just consider libertarians to be like the adult children of conservatism. So, anyways, him and his girlfriend, I think they might have been married by that point. They moved out. They ended up moving in with his parents. And then I went to go clean up the house. And holy shit. Like really, holy shit. The amount of stuff that I had to fix and replace. I had to there were things I just had to completely just end up ripping out and replacing the carpet. I had to rent one of those industrial carpet cleaners, and I spent 3 hours just in the living room pulling dog piss out of the carpet. It was fucking ridiculous. So finally got it on the market. It sold, thank God. And the last conversation I had with him, well, the last conversation in person I had with him was when he came to drop off the keys, and he was asking what was happening with my wife's house. Now, even after what I had gone through with Bob, she decided that she could trust one of her friends to rent her house. That's a whole nother topic. Something's going on in the distance. I don't know what it is. So then, anyways, he asked about are you guys renting this house? And I'm like, you already moved in with your mom. Like what is happening? And I said, no, she's renting it to somebody that she knows. And he's like, oh yeah, that's cool. Well, we're going to need help with the baby and blah, blah, blah. And, this is just going to be a better situation for us anyways. Okay. Keep in mind, by this point, he was out of the National Guard. And the first thing on his agenda was he really missed smoking weed. Really missed it. And he didn't think that even the National Guard had the right to tell him that he couldn't smoke weed. Again, libertarians. So, we had this conversation, and, I tell him what the situation is with my wife's house. And I'm not going to tell her what she can and can't do with her house, but I didn't agree with it, and I thought it was a horrible freaking idea. And of course, I should just rename myself Cassandra, honestly, because nobody fucking listens to me, and I'm always right. 99% of the time, I'm fucking right about what I say. I never get any credit or anything. Usually people just bitch and moan about I bet this is a I told you so moment. Well, I fucking told you so. And you wouldn't be as fucking miserable right now if you just listened to me the first time. So, a couple days later, I don't know, I'm guessing there must have been headbutting going on in the house or some shit. Maybe his wife and his mom were getting into it or whatever. But Bob sends me a text message. He's like, oh, hey, by the way, what's going on with your wife's house? And I'm like, we already talked about this. We literally had a face-to-face conversation about this, and I gave him the exact same answer, which is, my wife is renting it to so-and-so. And he writes back, oh, and immediately I knew he didn't even remember having the conversation because he was fucking blitzed out of his mind when he came by to drop off the keys. And I just remember turning to my wife and saying, well, this is the last time I'm going to hear from Bob. And she's like, why? And I tell her everything I just told you now. And she was like, how does he not remember that? And I was like, I can't tell you. I don't know. But for some reason, like, none of this stuff ever sinks in. And this had become an ongoing issue too, where I tell him something and we start talking and he'll ask me about something. And I'm like, I told you last week. And what? I don't remember that. Like, his memory just went to shit after he started smoking again. This is why I don't even touch that shit. So anyways, libertarians. If you're going to be a libertarian, own your own property. Be somebody else's pain in the ass. Second of all, your ideas, local laws, and ordinance do not give a shit about your political ideas. That's another warning. So don't be a pain in the ass to a landlord, to family members or friends you might be renting from. Be somebody else's pain in the ass, okay? Other things with libertarians. If you are going to rent, at least follow the regulations. Bitch about them, but don't just refuse to not follow them, because guess what? It doesn't affect you. It affects somebody else. That's probably helping your ass out. And if you can't afford to be a libertarian, don't be one. Honestly, unless you're going to be one of those nomadic people that just goes from state to state, living over at national parks and camping in Walmart parking lots, don't be one. Because, again, like, your definition of liberty is only going to be hurting everyone else around you, while you're still yelling and screaming about the Constitution. And let's face it, the Democrats at this point, well, both parties for the most part, have gutted that fucking piece of paper to the point where, do we even have a Constitution anymore? And if we don't have a Constitution anymore, do we technically have a legitimate government? Yes, these are some of my libertarian ideas coming out. Do I think that the current government is legit? Probably not. But does that mean I want them storming my house because I refuse to pay them taxes because I don't believe we should be paying the taxes we have today? No. If anything, I'm just going to consider it extortion, and you better stay the fuck off my property after I hand that money over. That's how I view it. I pay you, you go away. So anyways, that's about it for me. That's my story. This is why you shouldn't rent to libertarians. Is that a legal phrase? Probably not. I don't give a shit. After what I went through, never again. I'm just not renting ever again. I'm not having rental property. I don't give a crap if it's considered a good investment or not. I have only ever gotten screwed over by doing things such as renting. Because all the rights are in they're in the hands of the renter and not the landlord, honestly. And I understand there's slumlords, there's pricks out there that totally take advantage of people and they're god awful. But when you're a decent guy who is helping out a friend and all you do is get screwed over in the end, this is why. This is what ruins it for everyone. This is why you have asshole landlords who are complete pricks. Like the neighbor I had at that old house. Complete asshole. But at least I got to see him having a heart attack in the ER one day when I was at work. And I was like, oh, maybe my problems will be solved. So anyways, that's about it for me. Take care and keep on typing.